The dust kicked up like a devil's whisper under Buck's hooves as we threaded through Echo Gorge, the sun hammering down like it had a personal grudge against Arizona territory. Late autumn, 1882, and the air was so dry it could strip the hide off a man. I, Elias Thorne, had been riding these lines for what felt like an eternity, splicing copper wires that carried whispers from one forsaken town to the next. It was a job that suited me, solitary, endless, a way to outrun the ghosts that clung to my heels like burrs. Back east in Missouri, I'd lost everything. My wife, Clara, with her soft laugh and eyes like summer skies, taken by a fever that burned through our home like wildfire. Our boy, little Jacob, followed her into the ground just days later, his tiny hands cold in mine. The war had hardened me before that, scouting for the Union, dodging bullets and burying friends, but losing them. That turned my heart to stone. I fled west, chasing silence in this God-forsaken gorge, where the only company was the wind howling through the mesquite and the occasional rattle of a sidewinder. That day started like any other. Buck plodded along the ridge, his ears twitching at the faint hum of the telegraph wires sagging between weathered poles. My hands were raw from hammering pins into rotting wood. My revolver heavy on my hip, a constant reminder that out here, peace was just a pause between storms. I took a swig from my canteen, the water tepid and tasting of tin. When the first shot cracked the air like thunder, it came from nowhere. A bullet whining past my ear, splintering the pole beside me. Ambush. I snarled, yanking Buck's reins and diving from the saddle as another round kicked up dirt at my feet. Outlaws, 3 of them, ragged shadows bursting from the thorny scrub, their faces masked with bandanas, rifles spitting lead. Raiders, probably after the copper wire to melt down and sell, or just looking for an easy mark in this empty land. I hit the ground rolling, heart slamming like a war drum, and scrambled behind a boulder. My revolver was in my hand before I could think, the familiar weight grounding me. "Come on, you sons of bitches," I muttered, peeking over the rock. One was charging, a burly brute with a scarred cheek visible under his hat, firing wild. I squeezed the trigger once, twice the bark of my Colt echoing off the gorge walls. He jerked, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming dark on his shirt, and tumbled into the dust. The other 2 fanned out, one yelling something guttural as he reloaded. Bullets chipped stone inches from my face, showering me with grit. Sweat stung my eyes, but I didn't flinch. This was the Westraw, unforgiving, where a man proved his mettle with lead and grit. I fired back, dropping the second raider with a shot to the leg. He howled, crawling for cover. The third hesitated, then bolted for his horse, but I winged him too, sending him sprawling. The gorge fell silent save for their groans and Buck's nervous snorting. I stood slowly, revolver smoking, my breath ragged. Close to, damn close. I danced with death before, but this ambush shook me, stirring up memories of Clara's final plea. "Come back to me, Elias." I never did. Shaking it off, I tied the wounded ones alive, but bleeding to a pole with spare wire. Let the law and Dusty Gulch deal with them. I wasn't judge and jury today. Mounting Buck, I urged him on, the adrenaline still buzzing in my veins like bad whiskey. That's when I saw her, about 100 yards off. Near a cluster of brutal, thorny mesquite, a figure staked to the ground like some ancient sacrifice. My blood ran cold. Flies buzzed thick around at her. A woman, arms lashed behind a crude post, knees buckled, head slumped. She wasn't moving, but something, a faint twitch, told me she wasn't gone yet. The sun had baked her skin to a patchwork of bronze and angry red burns where her buckskin dress had torn away, exposing shoulders and a glimpse of thigh crusted with dried blood. An Apache, by the look of her beads and moccasins, one cracked and filthy, the other missing entirely. Her ankles were swollen raw from the ropes, and a tremor ran through her legs like a dying flame. Who the hell would do this? Tribe justice. Outlaws. My mind raced, pulling me into a whirl of questions. I'd heard tales of exiles left for the desert gods, but seeing it gutted me. I scanned the horizon left, right, a habit from scouting days, no riders, no dust clouds, just the vast, merciless blue sky. But after that ambush, I wasn't taking chances. My hand found my rifle stock, unhooking it smooth and silent. Easy, Buck, I whispered, whistling low for him to follow as I crept forward. Every step crunching gravel like a betrayal. The wind carried dry grass and a bitter tan blood, sweat, decay. Flies swarmed thicker as I neared, their buzz a sickening chorus. She was alive, barely. Her head lolled, eyes slitted against the glare, lips cracked and bloodless. Dried streaks on her inner thighs hinted at horrors I didn't want to name. Her breathing was a shallow rasp, like wind through a broken reed. I knelt. Rifle ready, sweat trickling down my temple. The sun pressed like a brand. Her eyes flickered, trying to focus on me-be-lack pools of confusion and pain. Streaks on her cheek stares, sweat and dirt. Her lips parted, no sound. She was fading fast. "All right," I muttered, voice rough in the dry air. "Hold on." I drew my knife, flashing the blade slow so she wouldn't panic. She didn't even flinch, just blinked. The ropes were tight, crusted with her blood. I saw it carefully, and they snapped. She pitched forward. I caught her, one arm under her shoulders, the other behind her knees. Light as a bird, but burning hot with fever. Her head lolled against my chest, fingers weakly clutching my shirt. No time to waste. I carried her back to Buck, who shuffled uneasy at the scent of blood. "Steady, boy," I said, draping her across his back, securing her with a loose strap. I mounted behind, one arm steadying her as we turned for the gorge's southern cut. My cabin was 5 miles off a forgotten miner's shack I'd claimed and fortified. With a leaky roof I'd patched myself, a cot that sagged in the middle, and a thin spring trickling nearby. It was no palace, but it was mine, fortress against the world. Every jolt of Buck's gait made her whimper faintly, her weight heavy against me despite her frailty. I checked her breathing, shallow, steady. Who was she? What sin had earned her this fate? The questions gnawed, building a curiosity that tugged at my gut. No one deserved this, not even in this lawless land where justice was often a noose or a stake. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows by the time we reached the ravine. The air cooled as we descended, Buck picking his way down the incline. Her head rested on my shoulder, body limp against the mule's sway. At the cabin, I dismounted, catching her as she slid. Lifting her like a child, her head lolled back, exposing blistered neck and collarbone. The door creaked open under my boot. Inside, the air was thick with leather, tobacco. Old smoke, my lonely domain. I laid her on the cot, propping her head with the thin pillow. Her arms curled inward, hands clenched, as if ropes still bound them. Pulling a blanket over her, I hesitated at the dress's terror-averting my eyes, covering her gently. Her breathing hitched. "You hear me?" I asked low. No answer. I stoked the stove, set water to boil, then poured a tin cup and pressed it to her lips. She swallowed slow, coughing weakly. I sat beside her a long while, cup in hand. Questions swirled. Why her? Why now? But she was here, pulling at threads in my heart I'd thought long severed. By nightfall, fever gripped her hard. I soaked a cloth in cool water, dabbing her forehead, neck, arms. She twitched under my touch, but didn't wake. The cabin was quiet except for the stove's tick and Buck's shuffle outside around midnight. She muttered words in Apache, hoarse and fragmented, laced with fear. I didn't understand, but the pain in them echoed my own nightmares. Clara's fevered pleas, Jacob's tiny cries. Why had fate dumped this on me? I wasn't a savior. I was a broken man hiding from life. Yet here I was, pressing coolness to her skin, watching, waiting. The ghost stirred mine, hearse whispering of losses that bound us before we even spoke. Dawn crept in gray and cold. I rose stiff from the chair, joints protesting the vigil. She opened her eyes black, wild with confusion, and flinched hard, scrambling back, but her body betrayed her. A whimper escaped, her arm yanking the blanket high. "Easy," I said, hands up, stepping back. "You're safe. No ties. I found you yesterday, staked out, barely breath in." Her chest heaved, eyes darting to the door, the room, then herself. Panic flickered, but she held it. I poured fresh water, set the cup on the cot's edge. There if you want it. Backing to the corner, I waited. Minutes dragged. She propped on an elbow, trembling hand taking the cup. She drank slow, each swallow a wince. Why? She rasped finally, voice like sandpaper. I paused. Leavin' you. Didn't sit right. She watched me, brow tight, eyes weary. Trust? Not yet. But she was alive. After a beat, where? Echo Gorge, my cabin. 'Bout 5 miles from where I cut you loose? How long? Day, maybe 2, her jaw clenched, fingers clutching blanket. Memory flashed in her eyes. Pain, betrayal. She winced, likely from hidden bruises. Kira, she said softly. I nodded. Elias. Silence hung heavy, questions unspoken. What now? Who did this? I didn't push. Stretching my legs, I headed for the stove. Rest. Food when you're ready. As I ladled beans into a bowl, she shifted. Not asking to leave that said enough. Kira didn't stir much that day, wrapped tight in the blanket, hand gripping its edge like a lifeline. She slept fitfully, waking to scan the door, then me measuring, always. I kept distance, movement slow like taming a wild mare. Every creak of floorboards made her flinch. Outside I mended a saddlebag, buck grazing lazy. The gorge was silent breeze through brush, distant creek. But my mind churned. Her eyes held stories of betrayal, mirroring my own flight from Missouri. What if she'd been Clara? The thought twisted my gut. Late afternoon, I set beans and cornbread near her. She sat up, knees drawn, face pale under bronze, skin still fever-warm. Bruises darkened her arms. Not sick, she said. Quiet, defiant. Didn't say you were. She eyed me. I backed to the stove. Food's warm. Take your time. She stood wobbly, dress hanging torn, blanket clutched, knees buckled. She caught the table. I stayed put. Spoon in hand, she ate slow, eyes on bowl. Was it your people? I asked soft. Why they left you? Pause. Yes. Blamed me for sickness.